In 1976, Happy Days was the #1 show on American television, attracting more than 50 million viewers a week. Not 50 million households, 50 million individual people every single week, sitting down in front of a jukebox fantasy of 1950s Milwaukee and finding something in it that felt true. The show had premiered in January 1974 as a modest, nostalgic sitcom about a teenage boy and his family. Within 2 seasons, it had been taken over by a leather-jacketed greaser in a motorcycle who became one of the most recognizable fictional human beings on Earth, Arthur Herbert Fonzarelli. The Fonzie, appeared on posters, t-shirts, lunchboxes, and action figures. He appeared on the cover of Time magazine. A bronze statue of him now stands on the Milwaukee Riverwalk, his thumbs perpetually up, his jacket permanently cool. Happy Days ran for 11 seasons on ABC, 255 episodes, and ended on July 19, 1984. Today, several of its principal cast members are gone. What happened to each of them is worth knowing in full. Number 1 is Tom Bosley, who played Howard Cunningham, the hardware store owner, the patient father, the man who held the Cunningham household together with a combination of mild authority and unconditional warmth, and who was, alongside Henry Winkler, the only actor to appear in all 255 episodes of the show. He was born Thomas Edward Bosley on October 1, 1927, in Chicago, Illinois. The son of a Jewish family. He served in the United States Navy during World War II, attended DePaul University after his discharge, and built a career first on stage, originating the title role of Fiorello LaGuardia in the Pulitzer Prize-winning Broadway musical, Fiorello. In 1959, winning the Tony Award for Best Featured Actor in a Musical. He was a serious theatrical talent who arrived at Happy Days already carrying more stage credentials than most television actors accumulated in an entire career. Howard Cunningham was the show's moral scaffold, the father whose values all the other characters orbited, tested, and eventually returned to. Bosley played the role without a single moment of condescension toward the material, treating every episode's small domestic drama as if it were worth the same attention he had brought to Fiorello, and the same attention he believed the audience deserved. He was, by the accounts of every co-star who later wrote or spoke about him, the most steadying presence on the call sheet. After Happy Days ended in 1984, Bosley moved directly into a second defining television role, Sheriff Amos Tupper on Murder, She Wrote, alongside Angela Lansbury, a role he played for 4 seasons. He then starred in Father Dowling Mysteries for 3 more seasons. He kept working past 80, with his final film appearance coming in The Backup Plan in 2010. What most viewers never knew is that he had been battling lung cancer for some time before his death, a diagnosis his representatives initially did not disclose publicly. He died of complications from a staphylococcal infection on October 19, 2010, at a hospital in Rancho Mirage, California, 18 days after his 83rd birthday. He is interred at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in the Hollywood Hills, California. The man who played television's most beloved father spent 40 years being the most reliable person in every room he entered. He earned his rest. Number 2 is Pat Morita, who played Matsuo Arnold Takahashi, the proprietor of Arnold's Drive-In, Fonzie's confidant, and the show's most steadying outside-the-family presence, and whose real life was so much harder than his cheerful screen persona that the distance between the two constitutes one of the great unacknowledged performances in American television history. He was born Noriyuki Morita on June 28, 1932, in Iselton, California. At age 2, he was diagnosed with spinal tuberculosis and spent the next 11 years immobilized in a hospital, unable to walk. By the time he was well enough to leave, World War II was underway, and distrust of Japanese Americans ran to institutional levels. He and his family were sent to internment camps for the duration of the war. He emerged from that childhood into a country that had imprisoned him for his ethnicity, with a body that had been kept from walking for a decade, and he became a comedian. What most viewers never knew is that Morita was a serious stand-up comedian who worked the nightclub circuit for years before television, developing a persona that synthesized the internment experience and the cultural disorientation of being Japanese American in post-war California into material that was simultaneously specific and universal. He appeared on Sanford and Son, on MAS, on Green Acres, before Arnold's Drive-In gave him a recurring television home. He left the show after season 3 when his character married and relocated, then returned in season 10 when Arnold bought back the diner from Al. The role that changed everything came in 1984, the same year Happy Days ended. ended when John Avildsen cast him as Mr. Miyagi in The Karate Kid. He was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor, the first Asian American to receive that nomination for a live-action performance. The opportunity those films opened did not translate into the sustained second career Morita deserved, partly because of the persistent underrepresentation of Asian actors in Hollywood that limited what was offered to him. He struggled with alcoholism throughout the later years of his career, a fact that became public only after his death. He died of kidney failure on November 24, 2005, in Las Vegas, Nevada. He was 73. His burial location has not been widely documented. The boy who spent 11 years in a hospital learning to walk became the man who taught the world what a wax-on, wax-off motion looked like. He deserved considerably more than Hollywood gave him, but the most quietly devastating personal story from the Happy Days cast belongs to the Cunningham daughter, the character who was closest to her on-screen family and who ended up furthest from anything that family's warmth suggested was possible. Number 3 is Erin Moran, who played Joni Cunningham, Richie's younger sister, the girl who grew up on screen from an 8-year-old's child comedies into a teenager's romantic storylines, who eventually fell for Fonzie's cousin Chachi and got her own spin-off, and who was one of the faces of the most successful American sitcom of the 1970s. She was born Erin Marie Moran on October 18, 1960, in Burbank, California. She began working as a child actress at the age of 5 and had a substantial resume before Happy Days made her famous at 11. She was a professional child actor in an industry that was very good at using child actors and almost entirely unprepared to support them when the work ended. What most viewers never knew is that Moran's personal life after the show became a sustained struggle that the entertainment industry's mechanisms were not designed to address. She had been raised in a household her TV mother Marian Ross later said was not supportive, in which her parents' priorities did not align with her well-being. She did not handle fame easily, and fame did not handle her gently when it moved on. After Happy Days ended in 1984, and after Joni Loves Chachi failed after 2 seasons, the television work dried up. She appeared on The Love Boat, she appeared on Murder, she wrote, reuniting briefly with Tom Bosley. But the steady career never returned. She foreclosed on her California home. She and her second husband, Steve Fleischman, moved in with his mother in a trailer park in Harrison County, Indiana. They were reportedly evicted following an altercation. In the final years of her life, she was diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer, a diagnosis she kept secret from almost everyone, sharing it only with a small number of close friends, including her former co-star, Anson Williams. She could no longer speak. Her texts to Williams in the final months were, by his account, positive. She was trying to stay hopeful. First responders answering a 911 call found her unresponsive at a home in Harrison County, Indiana, on April 22, 2017. She was pronounced dead at the scene. She was 56 years old. Her former co-star Anson Williams told People, Erin was a person who made everyone around her feel better. She truly cared about others first, a true angel. Her burial location has not been publicly documented. The girl who grew up on the most successful American sitcom of the 1970s died in a county in Indiana with a cancer diagnosis she had kept secret so her friends would not worry about her. If these stories mean something to you, please subscribe. Every detail in this script was researched and verified. Your subscription makes the next one possible. Number 4 is Al Molinaro, who played Al Delvecchio, the second proprietor of Arnold's Drive-In, the man who replaced Pat Morita's Arnold in Season 4 and stayed through Season 10, whose hangdog expression and signature multi-syllable sigh of resignation became one of the show's most reliable comic instruments. He was born Alfred Molinaro on June 24, 1919, in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Before acting, he made enough money in real estate to pursue show business without financial pressure, a fact that gave him an equanimity his profession rarely permitted. His path to Happy Days ran through Penny Marshall, his improv school classmate who introduced him to her brother Gary Marshall, who cast him in The Odd Couple as Officer Murray Greshler, a role he played for 5 years before Al Delvecchio came along. He was 54 years old when he joined Happy Days in Season 2. He played Al Delvecchio with the specific dignity of a man who understood that running a drive-in for teenagers in Milwaukee was a legitimate way to spend a life, and that the teenagers who came through his door deserved respect. In 1994, he reprised the role alongside the band Weezer in the music video for Buddy Holly, appearing in footage cut seamlessly with original Happy Days clips, a piece of pop culture work that introduced him to a generation who had never watched the original show. He was 75 years old and doing music videos. Al Molinaro died on October 30th, 2015, in Burbank, California, of complications from a gallstone ailment. He was 96 years old, the oldest principal cast member to die, and by several accounts, the most content with the life he had built. His burial location has not been publicly documented. The man with the hangdog expression spent 96 years finding reasons to be grateful, and it showed in every scene he appeared in. Number 5 is Henry Winkler, who played Fonzie, and who is alive in 2026 at age 80, still working, still at the table. He was born Henry Franklin Winkler on October 30th, 1945, in Manhattan, New York, the son of German Jewish immigrants who had fled Berlin in 1939. He attended the Yale School of Drama, earned his MFA, and arrived in Hollywood, trained and ready. He auditioned for the role of Fonzie, expecting a minor supporting part, and got a character that overtook the show within 2 seasons and made him one of the most famous people on Earth. What most viewers never knew is that Winkler is severely dyslexic, a learning difference that made the table reads for Happy Days a regular private ordeal that he concealed for most of his career, and that he eventually addressed publicly by writing a series of children's books about a dyslexic boy named Hank Zibzer. He has said that writing those books, something he could not have imagined doing as a child who struggled to read, was among the most important things he ever did. After Happy Days, Winkler spent years finding that being the Fonz was more identity than the industry knew how to work around. He produced, he directed Cop and a Half. He took small roles that were as far from Fonzie as possible. Eventually, he became a character actor of real distinction. Barry Zuckerkorn on Arrested Development, Dr. Saperstein on Parks and Recreation, and most significantly, acting coach Gene Cousino on Barry, the HBO series, for which he won his first Emmy Award in 2018 at age 72. He told People magazine in April 2026, "It never occurred to me to retire because I am so happy in my house with Stacy and our children and our grandchildren, and I am so happy when I am working, when I'm doing what I dreamed of doing, and I still get to do it. I still get to be at the table. That is an amazement to me." Henry Winkler is 80 years old. The Fonz, it turns out, gets better with age. Number 6 is Marian Ross, who played Marian Cunningham, Mrs. C, the mother of the Cunningham household, the woman Fonzie called by the most affectionate title he gave anyone, and who is alive in 2026 at age 97, the oldest surviving principal cast member of the show. She was born Marian Ellen Ross on October 25, 1928 in Albert Lea, Minnesota, attended San Diego State College, and built a steady film career through the 1950s. Sabrina, Some Came Running, Teacher's Pet, before television became her primary medium. Happy Days, which began in 1974 when Ross was 45, gave her the role she carried for 11 seasons and 2 Emmy nominations. What most viewers never knew is how much professional resilience that career required before Happy Days arrived. Ross had been working in Hollywood for 20 years with consistent employment and no particular stardom. She raised 2 children largely on her own following her divorce. She supported herself and her family through 2 decades of guest roles and second-tier casting before Marian Cunningham finally put her name permanently in the American television record. She appeared in Ron Howard's directorial debut, Grand Theft Auto, in 1977. She recurred on Brooklyn Bridge, The Drew Carey Show, Gilmore Girls, and King of the Hill. She is, at 97, one of the last working actresses of the studio era, still occasionally active. Henry Winkler posted a tribute to her for her 97th birthday in October 2025, calling her a magnificent woman. She is in Minnesota or California or wherever she chooses to be at 97 years old, having outlasted almost everyone who started when she did. Number 7 is Ron Howard, who played Richie Cunningham for 7 seasons before leaving in 1980 to become a filmmaker, and who may be the single most successful alumnus of any American television sitcom in history. He was born Ronald William Howard on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, the son of actors Rance Howard and Gene Spiegel. He was Opie Taylor on The Andy Griffith Show from age 6 to 14. He was Richie Cunningham from age 19 to 26. Everything that followed those 2 characters was built on the foundation they provided, and what he built was extraordinary. Apollo 13, A Beautiful Mind, which won the Academy Award for Best Picture and Best Director. Frost / Nixon, The Da Vinci Code. His films have grossed more than $4 billion globally. Through Imagine Entertainment, he has produced decades of significant television. He left Happy Days because the show's center of gravity had shifted irrevocably to Fonzie, and he had been watching long enough to understand that staying was a choice about what kind of career he wanted. He made the other choice. He and Winkler remained close friends. They presented together at the 2024 Emmy Awards, and the warmth of that friendship suggests that both of them understood, even at the time, that the competition their situation appeared to create was not the thing that actually mattered. Ron Howard is alive in 2026 at age 72, currently one of the most significant figures in American filmmaking, still at Imagine Entertainment, still at the table. They ended up in a California Memorial Park and an Indiana County and a Las Vegas hospital and a jukebox in Milwaukee and an Emmy stage in 2018 and a Minnesota hometown at 97. Tom Bosley is at Forest Lawn. Pat Morita is in an undocumented location, somewhere he deserved better than. Erin Moran is in an undocumented location in Indiana. The secret she kept about her cancer, still one of the most quietly heartbreaking details in the show's long aftermath. Al Molinaro is somewhere his family chose to keep private, at 96, having lived better than almost anyone on the call sheet. And 3 of them are still here. Winkler at 80, still working, still at the table. Ross at 97, the last of the great studio-era television mothers. Howard at 72, having directed his way so far from Arnold's drive-in that only the warmth in his filmmaking gives the origin away. Happy Days. It ended in 1984. The jukebox is still playing. If these stories meant something to you, leave a comment below. Tell me which cast member hit hardest. I read every reply.